On January 23, 1959, 10 students from the Ural Polytechnical Institute started traveling to begin a hiking and skiing trip in the Ural Mountains. The trip was led by Igor Dyatlov, 23 years old. He studied radio engineering at the institute. 21-year-old Yuri Nikolachuk. In his fourth year of radio engineering, he was the tallest of the group. He had been in a relationship with another skier on the trip, Zina Komgrova. She was 22, a fifth-year student of radio engineering. Even though they had broke up, the two were still good friends. Ludmila Dublina was the youngest of the group at 20 years old. She studied engineering and economics, a fourth-year student. Alexander Kolotov. He was a 24-year-old student of nuclear physics in his fourth year. Yuri Kurgashenko, a 23-year-old graduate of construction and hydraulics. While working in Chelyabinsk 40, a secret nuclear facility, he experienced a nuclear disaster, a radioactive leak from the plant. He was sent in as part of the cleanup crew. Rustem Sublin, a 23-year-old graduate of the university in 1958. Nikolai Tinobrungal, 23, studied construction at the university. Simon Zoltrov, age 37, the oldest in the group and the most mysterious, graduated from the Institute of Physical Education of Minsk in 1950. And the only survivor, Yuri Yudin, 21, who left early due to rheumatism and knee pain he was suffering. Every member of the expedition had a grade 2 rating and ski experience. Once they returned from their trip, they would receive a grade 3 rating, the highest rating possible. The route laid out by the group would take them to the north regions of the Sverdlovsk Oblast and the upper Luza River. Their route was approved by the Sverdlovsk Route Commission. The goal was to reach Mount Orton, a mountain 6 miles from where the Dyatlov incident occurred. January 23rd, they were in a hotel room packing for their journey. They leave Sverdlovsk on a train headed towards Serov. January 24th, they reached Serov. Yuri was singing at the train station when a policeman arrested him. Later that day, he was released. They warned him not to disturb the peace, and they sent them on their way. At midnight, they reached Livdel. January 25th, they boarded a bus to Vizhay. On the 26th, they leave Vizhay in the back of a GAZ-63, a large 2-ton Russian 4x4. The temperature was -1 degrees Fahrenheit. They headed to the 41st district. When they arrived, the group makes a deal with the locals to have a horse carry their packs to the second settlement. Yuri Yudin falls ill. They find a shack to spend the night in a village with 25 houses. They wrote in their diary, only one was suitable for living. They started a fire from old boards, some injuring their hands with the nails. They stayed up until 3 a.m. singing and talking. January 28th, they awoke. It was 17 degrees Fahrenheit. Yuri Yudin leaves the group. The others start the first real day of their hike. 11:45 a.m., they depart the village and hike up the Luza River. 5:30, they rest at the banks of the river and set up camp. The group's first night in the tent. The tent was divided in the middle by a stove too hot to sleep next to. Igor Dyatlov had took 2 regular tents and stitched them down the middle to make one large tent. January 29th, the second day of the hike, they left the Luza River for the Osipa River, skiing down a Manzi Trail. The Manzi people are indigenous people living in the Tumen Oblast region. The temperature was 8 degrees Fahrenheit. They camp along the Ospia River. January 30th, they continue along the river, awaking at 8:30 a.m. and follow a deer sledge trail. The temperature was 1 degrees Fahrenheit when they awoke. The wind is strong. Snow begins to fall. The temperature plummets to -14 degrees Fahrenheit. They cannot walk on the river. It is not completely frozen and thin. The ice and water is hidden by snow. They stick to the bank and set up camp. January 31st, the weather is worse, windy and -14 degrees. They set off at 10 a.m., followed the Manzi Trail. The snow is deep. They can only go forward at 1 mile per hour. They went on, rotating somewhat to forge a path through the snow. Every 10 minutes, they leave the valley and head upwards. The wind is piercing. The end of the forest is near. They leave some gear in the woodline on a platform. They go south into the Ospia Valley, to the deepest snow, 3 to 4 feet deep, and set up camp. Build a fire and eat in the tent. That is the last info we have from the diary of the group. But we know February 1st, they started late, walked only 2.5 miles that day. Set up camp around 5 p.m. on a slope of the Kolat Shackle, 10 miles from Mount Orton. Had supper at 7 p.m. There is evidence that 1 or 2 members left the tent to use the restroom. Dyatlov had agreed to send a telegram to the Institute Sport Club once they returned to Vizhay. No later than February 12th was it discussed, but Dyatlov had told Yuri Yudin they would be longer. So when February 12th came and no telegram was received, no one panicked. Delays were common during expeditions, especially deep in the Manzi regions. When February 20th rolled around and no one had heard from them, the family members demanded something be done. The head of the institute sent a rescue party of volunteers, students and teachers. Later, the police and the army joined the rescue. The head of the sports club unfortunately had lied to the parents, saying that he had received a telegram from the party. That's why the parents had waited so long before demanding the search party. Planes took off from the Idvel airport to search from the air on February 22nd. Several prison guards and 7 police officers joined the search for the missing hikers. Another 3 groups from the university and local Manzi hunters volunteered, and Moscow had sent specialists. February 23rd, a group was dropped near Mount Orton. They reached it February 24th and concluded they never reached the mountain. By February 25th, Boris Slavstov's group discovered the party's ski trails. The next day, they discovered the tent. The tent had struck up controversy even to this day. For reasons unknown, the sides of the tent were cut from the inside. Some cuts did not make it all the way through. The left of the entrance, almost all the hikers' boots were piled up. 7 felt boots and 6 pairs of boots. To the right, 2 buckets, alcohol flask, 2 axes, 1 small axe, pots and sheathed rasp, stove, bags of food, and a piece of loin. The center of the tent, they found 2 pairs of shoes. The far part of the tent stored the food, cereals, cans, sugars, and wood for the stove. A satirical propaganda leaflet was at the entrance. The back was covered in snow, believed to be blown in and not from an avalanche. A pair of skis were standing up near the front of the entrance, in the snow. They would not be there if it was an avalanche. At the entrance was an ice axe in Dyatlov's jacket laying outside the tent in the snow. On the side of the tent, on top of the snow, lay Dyatlov's flashlight, still in working order. There were 8 to 9 tracks of footprints in the snow. Nearly all had almost no footwear. They walked in a near single-file line with a tall man walking in the back, partially covering the footprints of his friends in the front. This path gave the impression of an orderly descent down the slope. Several trails would go off path, but later rejoin with the group. Only 1 set of prints had boots, and the others had only socks on bare feet. A second flashlight was found 1,400 feet down the slope, turned on with the batteries dead. A broken ski was 65 feet from the tent. On March 3rd, everything from the tent was laid out and inventoried. 9 parkas, 8 quilted jackets, 1 fur jacket, 2 sleeveless vests, 4 shell pants, 1 cotton pant, 4 scarves, 13 pairs of gloves, 8 pairs of ski boots, 3 skull caps, 1 fur hat, 2 berets, 3 compasses, 1 pocket watch, 2 finished knives, 3 axes, 19 PCS overboots, 2 buckets, 2 pots, 2 flasks, 1 first aid kit, 4 cameras, also a large number of personal items. They left without outer clothes, shoes, hats, and gloves. Only a serious threat would scare 9 young healthy people to cut open their tent, leave their shelter in below 0 temperatures. Their options at the time seemed to be stay at the camp for an imminent death or head out into the forest without supplies, clothes, or footwear. The latter seemed to be the better option for whatever scared the hikers, risking imminent death in the frozen wilderness in the dead of night. What could have possibly terrified them to make that decision? On February 27, 1959, at 11 a.m., 9/10 of a mile from the tent, the first two bodies were found, Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krovchenko. The searchers saw something dark next to a tree. There were remains of a fire. About 9 feet from the fire lay Yuri Doroshenko, frozen, barely clothed. In his hair they found moss and pine needles. Hair on the right side was burned. Blood on his ear, nose, and lips. Swollen upper lip, right cheek covered in gray foam, possibly pulmonary edema. 2 abrasions on the right shoulder. Bruise on the right armpit. Bruised upper right forearm, swelling and abrasions on the right hand. Bruised soft tissue on hands and fingertips. All fingers and toes frostbitten. Left shoulder abrasion. Left elbow and left forearm. Bruises on legs. He died 6 to 8 hours after his last meal. His cause of death was hypothermia. Yuri Krovchenko, laying next to him, both appeared that they had been moved post-mortem. He had on an undershirt, long-sleeve flannel shirt, swimming pants, long johns, a torn sock on his left foot, no footwear, a large amount of injuries, a bruise on the forehead, diffused bleeding in the right temporal, bruised left temporal bone, tip of nose missing, no blood, frostbitten ears, portion of epidermis found in his teeth. It is thought he bit down to keep awake or to try to stay quiet. Swollen hand on the right, bluish right palm, burned fingers, missing epidermis on left hand, abrasion on chest, abrasion at the edge of the rib, bruise on the buttocks, 3 wounds on the left hip, abrasions on the right front of tibia and fibula, front inner left thigh, edema on the left leg and foot, burned on entire outer surface of leg, missing skin on the left foot, second toe charred. He died of hypothermia. Both men died in the same way. Both had clothing taken by other hikers, assumed after death. They were laid side by side under a tree, one face up and one face down. Igor Dyatlov was found next that same day, 900 feet away from the tree, face up, head towards the tent, his hands clenched into fists. An unbuttoned jacket, a cotton singlet, ski pants over his pants, no shoes, 1 cotton sock on his left foot, and 1 wool sock on his right. His watch stopped at 5:30. He had abrasions on his forehead, eyelids, left eyebrow, both cheeks. He had blood on his lips, missing incisor on the lower jaw, bruised knee, cut ankles, and tibia. Forearm bruised, right palm and hand bruising on the metacarpal joints. Second and fifth finger, top and bottom. No internal injuries. Cause of death was considered hypothermia. Zenaida Komgrova was 2,000 feet from the cedar tree, face down, head towards the tent. She had 2 hats, long sleeve undershirts, sweater, flannel shirts, another sweater with the right sleeve cut off, cotton sports pants, trousers, ski pants with 3 holes in the bottom of the right leg, 3 pairs of socks, and no footwear. She had an abrasion on the forehead, eyelids, on the bridge and tip of the nose, bruised cheek, abrasion on both hands, wounds on the back of the right hand at the base of the 3rd finger. She had frostbite, a long bright bruise along the right side of her torso, possible baton striking her. Cause of death was considered hypothermia due to a violent accident. There were no signs of a sexual attack. Rustem Slobodin was 1,500 feet from the cedar tree, found on March 5th, covered in 20 inches of snow, face down towards the tent. He had an undershirt, shirt, sweater, 2 pairs of pants, 4 pairs of socks, 1 felt boot. His watch stopped at 8:45. Under his sweater was 2 shoe inserts in his shirt pocket, 310 rubles, and his passport, a pocket knife, pencil, comb, matches, with 48 matchsticks, and 1 cotton sock. His injuries were hemorrhages in the temporalis muscles, abrasions on the forehead, 2 scratches, bruised eyelid on the right with hemorrhaging, blood in the upper nose, swelling on face, bruised knuckles, common in hand-to-hand combat, bruises on left arm, left palm, and left tibia, torn epidermis from the right forearm, fractured frontal bone, 1.5 centimeters from the sagittal suture. The fracture could have been done with a blunt object. He would have suffered shock due to the blow to the head, which could speed up hypothermia. The rescue efforts continued, but after 2 months, there were no signs of the 4 other hikers. A Manzi noticed cut branches off a trail, 1,600 foot back. Sweatpants were found, with a leg cut off. Missing branches from fir trees, and a woman's wool sweater, with the right half and sleeve cut off. The area had been searched with avalanche probes, but the snow was much deeper than expected. The bodies were found May 5th. The area is now called the Den. This is one of the most puzzling parts of the story. Some of the most gruesome details will be left out. The last surviving members constructed the Den, 245 feet from the cedar tree. They made a pad of cedar branches to lay on. The strange part is the bodies were found a few feet away from their shelter. But it just gets stranger from here. Ludmila Deblina was found first, in a stream, deep underneath the snowpack, on her knees, upper body pressed against the rock. She had a short sleeve shirt, long sleeve, and 2 sweaters. One belonged to Korshenko. It tested positive for high amounts of radiation. The radiation might not be the strangest part, considering he was involved in the radiation cleanup after the Kaisim disaster. She had underwear, long socks, 2 pants. The outer pair was badly damaged by fire and was ripped. She had a hat and 2 pairs of socks. A 3rd sock that was not paired. Her injuries were severe. Some I will not word in the same way the autopsy worded them. She had skin missing from around the eyes, brows, nose, and cheek. Damage around the left temporal bone. Empty eye sockets. Nose cartilage flattened. Missing all soft tissue around the teeth and upper jaw. Missing tongue, left rib bones. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 were broken. On the right side, 2, 3, 4, and 5 were broken. Massive hemorrhaging in the right atrium of the heart. Bruised thigh. The doctors described the extent of the damage, the same as getting hit by a car. They were crushed with immense force. Simeon Zoltov and Alexander Kolatov were found together nearly 100 foot downstream, facing breast to back. Simeon had on him 2 hats, scarf, shorts, long sleeve shirt, sweater, coat with top 2 buttons unbuttoned, underwear, 2 pairs of pants, a skiing pant. He had a newspaper, coins, compass, socks, leather handmade shoes, a camera around his neck. 4 other cameras were found inside the tent. But why did he leave the tent so quickly and grab his camera when others left nearly barefoot? The film was ruined from the stream he was found in. He had a pen in one hand and a notepad in the other. The notepad was never pictured or sent into evidence. Only one man is said to have looked at the notepad. Colonel Oryatov. He looked at it and cursed. Then he said he had written nothing. Simeon's injuries were as follows. Empty eye sockets and soft tissue around the left wound to the left side of the head, with exposed bone, flail chest, broken ribs, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on the right side. Alexander Kolatov was missing a hat and shoes, but he had a sleeveless shirt, long sleeve shirt, sweater, fleece, ski jacket with the zipper down. It had a hole in the sleeve and burnt edges, several tears in the right sleeve, a key, safety pin, blank paper, 2 packages of pills, soda and codeine, shorts, right pant, ski pants, canvas pants, box of matches, wool socks with fire damage, 1 light sock on the right. The left had 3 similar socks. A wristband and sweater later tested positive for radiation. His injuries were missing tissue around the eyes, flattened nose, wound behind the ear, deformed neck, bleeding under tissue of the knee. Gray and green skin with a tint of purple. Nikolai Thinobrungal was found further downstream. He had a canvas fur hat, a woolen hat, a shirt, wool sweater, fur jacket, wool gloves, coins, comb, paper, underwear, sweatpants, cotton pants, ski pants, wool socks, and felt boots. 2 watches on his left wrist. One stopped at 8:14, the other stopped at 8:39. He had multiple fractures from the temporal bone to the frontal sphenoid bones, bruised lips, hemorrhages on the left forearm. It is less than likely that these injuries could have been from simply falling on the rocks. The cache that the group left in the forest seemed untouched. The damage to the hikers was severe. You would think some of these people were hit by a bus, from the description of their injuries. There are many theories of what happened to the hikers. Some believe a nuclear test killed the hikers. Others think aliens came down and killed them. A Yeti is blamed for attacking the hikers, causing them to run headfirst into the forest, chancing the cold rather than a fierce Yeti, only having it catch up with some of the hikers, causing the wounds that we read. Escaped convicts attacking the hikers, but one of the strongest theories is that of an avalanche causing the hikers to flee for their lives, causing their tent to be in such a state, covered in snow and fallen down, causing the hikers at the den to be buried so deep in the snow and so brutally beaten and damaged. But this theory has its weaknesses as well, though I believe it to be the most likely option. The ski poles were still standing in front of the tent, no real signs of an avalanche. But there are different types of avalanches. A slab could have broken off. The last picture the hikers took was them cutting into the slope to make flat ground for the tent. You do not see that cut in the same slope from the photos taken during the rescue. The radiation is partially explained from the men who worked at the nuclear site. So that leaves the injuries and what caused them to cut open their tent, flee into the chilling wilderness. Something that made them think that if they did not leave the tent and leave it fast, they were going to die. The last popular theory was the Mansi people came up and killed the hikers for being on their sacred mountain. But this seems to be one of the least likely options. The Mansi people helped immensely in the search effort. The area was not sacred to them, it was actually avoided. And to think, if the Russians thought for 1 second that the indigenous people were to blame and not use that for their advantage, they would have. They never thought that they were to blame. They found tons of equipment, money, cameras, liquor, food, axes, so much useful items that the Mansis could have used. Not to mention all the items that were found on the hikers. It was not the Mansis or escaped convicts or nuclear testing. There is no evidence of any of that. There is evidence against every theory. It really comes down to what you think it was. Was it aliens, a Yeti, nuclear testing, an avalanche? Or was it something that we didn't talk about in this video? If so, put it down in the comments. What do you think happened to the missing hikers? Now, this story is very intriguing for obvious reasons. Every single theory has its flaws, but every single theory, if you're open-minded, you can understand where people are coming from. Personally, I don't believe it was aliens. I don't believe it was a Yeti. I think the most likely option was some sort of avalanche. I guess it makes sense that you see the picture that they took putting up the tent, how they have that big cut into the bank, and when the rescuers are there taking pictures, it looks like it's just on flat ground, like something came over and filled in the hole that they had cut out and everything. It's kind of strange. So I believe personally that that is what happened. It doesn't necessarily mean that other things didn't happen later, but I don't know. I wasn't there. I guess the only people that actually will ever know what truly happened were the missing hikers themselves. And there's no way that we're ever going to know exactly what happened. I guess that's what makes it such a mystery after all. 9 hikers. They were all inside their tent, getting ready to go to bed. There's evidence that 2 of the people might have been out of the tent when this happened, because 2 of the people, they had footwear on and were heavily dressed. And they think that two people were out using the bathroom, using the buddy system, you know. You don't leave by yourself, you bring a buddy with you. So it is believed that two people were out there already when whatever it was happened. The people inside cut open their tent from the inside, made big giant gashes in the tent instead of all rushing out the front. Now we don't know, some of them could have went out of the front, but I'm not sure if the tent was closed or open. Nobody can really say that for sure when they found it, if it was zipped up or tied up or however it was secured or not. But it was definitely cut open, for sure. That is the only bit of salvation those people had. They didn't have a spare tent. That is the only way that they're surviving, is that tent. And if they can't fix that tent, you're dead. So something had to scare them so bad for them to cut their only source of survival open. To cut that tent down, run out into the wilderness in a pair of socks, your underwear, long johns. Those people had to have thought they were going to die. There's nothing short of that, because they run out into negative 14-degree weather in socks and underwear, you're gonna die. It's just very curious what happened. I wonder if they felt the earth moving, an avalanche starting or something, and that they heard loud noises coming down or something, or what else they heard. There's no knowing. It just baffles the mind of all the possibilities that could have happened with this case. And there's a lot more other theories out there of what actually happened, but those were the most popular, with the Yeti, aliens, you know. But I don't believe it was any of that. If you've ever seen the Ancient Alien episode where they believe the aliens were flying through or something and a massive force just destroyed everybody and flew them off into the woods and whatnot, and the radiations from the aliens, yeah, I don't think that's the case. An avalanche seems a lot more plausible than aliens coming down and accidentally killing everybody. Now, I do believe in aliens, don't get me wrong, but do I believe they were killed by aliens? No, I don't. Put down in the comments what you think really happened. And if you've got any more info, let me know. Also, leave a like, comment if you enjoyed this video. It really helps out the channel. Comments, criticisms, anything you got. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you on the next. Peace.